All right, folks. So we are now live, and I wanted to give this piece of advice to everybody who is just bleeding badly because you've been holding on to bags of coins. You've just been doing all the research. You've been just trading really hard at the markets, trying to get good at technical analysis, trying to understand what's been going on in the market, following all the news, and you're still not getting this space right. Okay, so this one really goes out to you guys. I think, let me just give you a little bit of a backstory. Okay, if you are someone who has been in the space for at least 3 years, okay, at least 3 years, you would know that the cryptocurrency markets go through cyclical corrections like this. So you don't really have to worry that much. You're experiencing this pain because you probably came in a little bit later than everyone else. You are now someone who came in at 20, probably you came in at late 2017. You enjoyed a little bit of the bull run, but then after that, when you thought that there were more things that were going to be happening from a positive standpoint, and you doubled down, but that kind of has taken a hit on you. This one's for you. So let me give you a bit of a backstory, right? I've been in the space for a good 3 years. Okay, I started when Bitcoin was $700. I started when Ethereum was $9 to $12. I was as clueless as everyone who is watching this episode right now. And it was kind of easy because there was not much excitement out there. There was really not many coins that I could really take part in, because the exchanges that we know today, like Binance, Huobi, they didn't exist for me, right? It was just purely Coinbase. So I asked myself, okay, this Ethereum, this looks interesting. It's a smart contract protocol that will eventually allow various decentralized applications to be built on top of it. At the same time, there's a lot of customization that you could possibly do on Ethereum. So I was like, okay, from a very straightforward standpoint, that was one of the reasons. And at the time, I mean, $9 to $12, it was the price then. I mean, obviously, it was way cheaper when it first started out, but at that time, I wasn't even in the crypto markets, because I was basically trading in or investing in stocks, forex. I wasn't even in tune with this space. So to me, there was not much volatility. You couldn't really trade. You couldn't really trade cryptocurrencies. So when 2017 came, right, whatever Ethereum that I had, right, and we're talking about a whole year of accumulation here. I had zero expectations. I just focused on studying what cryptocurrencies were. I was just focused on studying what investments in this space were. Would it really make sense for me to park whatever I've earned in the stock markets and the forex markets into this space? So I did a lot of learning at that point, because I really didn't understand what blockchain was. I didn't understand what exactly smart contracts were. What was all this idea about decentralization? All these things. I never really understood all these things until I really started to dive deep into this space. So when 2017 hit, right, it was just crazy. Okay, it was just crazy because I have never experienced these kind of gains. Now, when you talk about the stock market is always very slow, very steady growth. And I'm someone who buys the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Alibaba. I really don't know too much, or would dive too much into the small mid caps, because the small mid caps, usually you have very, very little insights, and most of the time you would have to be very, very connected, right? So if you were someone who was very connected in that space, and you were able to kind of have a chit chat with these CEOs and CFOs of these small mid-cap companies, you could make a hell of a killing that you do here in the cryptocurrency markets. But at the time, back in 2016, everyone was just more geeky. They were focused on building stuff. They were not too much on the speculative aspect. But when 2017 hit, and people realized that when you create a marketplace, which are the exchanges that we know now, everyone started to get really excited because money started to flow in like crazy, especially when Ethereum just started to go crazy. We're talking about from $9 to $50 in less than 2 months. We're talking that kind of crazy. So everyone, especially who kind of stepped into Ethereum, and they were the ICO holders, or they were folks that just bought Ethereum when it hit on Coinbase, they started to just share it with their friends, and that's when the virility started. Not only that, you had all the institutions, banks, we're talking about big banks, companies, conglomerates, just stepping into Ethereum, just being part of the EEA, if you remembered. So at the time, right, I was just only focused on one thing: understanding what this was all about. Whether it would make sense for me to invest, right? Literally invest my money, because I was not a developer. I am still not a developer. To me, as an investor, it only makes sense to me if I understand it. And that's something that a lot of us failed to do, because everybody just wanted to get their money in because the intention was to get rich, not to even understand whether this technology is real. Is it here to stay? Is it of any value to anyone else except for who's willing to buy it up more expensive on the market? No one cared about whatever that I was talking about, you see. And what happened eventually was when the whole market corrected, because at some point, right, everybody will feel that it's way overvalued, it shouldn't be priced this way, and even the founders themselves commented that, you know what, I might need to take a step back because this is not what I signed up for. You see, the whole crypto community and the way that companies, CEOs or CFOs run a stock, right? A company that is listed on the stock exchange is completely different. So when I started to realize that, hey, these people are genuine, they are really here just to build. They really don't like to keep hearing, hey, what do you think the price is going to be? They hate that question, because these guys are not like the guys that we know in Wall Street, in the financial markets. These are the guys are very different in terms of their thinking. It's very different. A company, especially if you are a listed company, a public listed company on NASDAQ, on S&P 500, on basically in the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE, wherever you are, right? The way you address your investors, right, is always you're thinking for them. You're thinking for the company how to make more revenue and more income streams, because you know at the end of the day, you are accountable to your stockholders. You know, that's why a CEO and CFOs that have and run large companies or conglomerates that are sitting on the board, they speak very differently than when you are going to speak to Charlie Lee, when you speak to Vitalik. They are different. They focus on very, very different things. And this is something that you have to understand from the very get-go if you're going to be starting to step into this space, because you're going to be buying something that is going to be used for the internal economy within that particular cryptocurrency. So this is something that we have to understand. Now, the next thing that I want to give in terms of advice is that when you are coming in, if you have the mentality, right, that you think that, oh, this is something that I can get rich quick, I think we all know by now, right, especially if you were someone who came in early 2017, that's not the case. And a lot of folks, right, are now getting jaded because they feel, oh, you know, this space is not real. Bitcoin's obviously a scam. The whole space is just looking bad, right? And in a way, it seems true, because when someone has influence over the network, okay, when someone has influence over the network and they start rattling it up, right, and not settling it internally. Okay, I'm just wondering, right, with the whole Bitcoin Cash issue at the moment, why couldn't you settle it internally? Why did you have to do a hard fork? Why did you have to do that? Even if you were already coming in together to form Bitcoin Cash, you already split off from Bitcoin. You are already forming that main bulk of another business. You already started another business, but now internally from Bitcoin Cash, you can't even settle, and you come out with Bitcoin Cash ABC and SV. Now, look, that's not That's not something that I care about. I really don't, because I don't see the value in Bitcoin Cash. I really don't. Even though you may say that you're the main Satoshi or whatever, but for the fact that you allowed 30% of your value to just drop overnight, how does that reflect on you as a business? Think about it that way. Obviously, you don't care because you are obviously front running your trades in front of everyone else. This is quite obvious, okay? Because if you already planned it, if you were really sincere about settling your problems internally, you wouldn't fucking post it on Twitter. Only children do that, okay? Just so you know. But not only that, because you are also owning a majority of the miners, or at least you have a significant portion of the miners mining the Bitcoin network as well, you fuck that up for everyone else. And that comes down to the next point, which are a lot of cryptocurrencies are actually pegged to BTC. So imagine this, when you have uncertainty with the simple people who don't even trade, which are the miners. They don't trade, by the way. They are just usually mining the Bitcoins as a form of business to maintain profitable networks. In this case, the Bitcoin network is a very profitable network. It's fucking $100 billion, right? If it's $100 billion and people have invested millions into mining equipment, land, right? Land, of course, you have to rent the land and rent the warehouse or whatever you call it to house all the Bitcoins, or to house all the mining equipment. And at the same time, you have to have professionals to maintain the mining equipment as well. This is all high cost, guys. So imagine you are creating this great uncertainty for folks that are spending 5 figures to 6 figures a month on their Bitcoin farms, right? And you create this uncertainty and this fear in them, and you want to shift them and sway them to your way because, hey, I'm who I say I am, you better listen. So you think about it, right? As much as I came into this space thinking that, hey, Bitcoin, the borderless payment, social inclusion, financial inclusion, not worrying about needing to have a bank account anymore, and I can transact with anyone I want around the world at low fees. That seems to be a very far-fetched ideal at this point of time. Because if Bitcoin is going to be as expensive as it is to transact on the network, then it's not favorable. But obviously, as time passes and maybe when once things are a little bit more stable, this ideal or this idea that Satoshi actually initially came up with could actually go into full play. But then again, if we're coming in as investors, how do you feel about the current market situation when someone who runs a whole network, or at least has influence over the whole network, just wants to keep splitting and creating all this uncertainty? Now, obviously, traders love that kind of volatility. They love shorting the market and everything like that. But investors, they don't really like that kind of uncertainty. You can have market uncertainty, but when you don't even have a direction within your own company, that is when things look bad, and that's when I exit. But then again, I was never someone who was in Bitcoin Cash. I'm just sharing with you that when I make decisions on investing, I make sure that the teams are able to coordinate and of course settle things internally. But at the same time, on the forefront, in the front, they have to show that they are continuously creating value and expansion and services for the markets that they're planning to build in. That's where I look at these kind of value. That's, to me, the real value in this space at the moment. Because initially, everyone was saying, oh, the number of addresses. Oh, what's the hash rate like? How much transactions that are being processed per day? At the same time, how's the community like? The number of developers that are working on this. All these things are value as well, but it's very hard to put a number to these things that I just mentioned. At the end of the day, it's always about sales, revenue, and profit. If you do not have the 3 things that I just mentioned, how are you ever going to do a token buyback? It doesn't make sense. At the same time, when you step into an ICO, there is zero obligations for the CEO or the board directors to be accountable to any of you. That's the That's the sad thing, that when we all stepped into ICOs, and bear in mind, I only invested in only one ICO the whole of 2017. I was never into the whole ICO scene, even though I was reading extensively about it. I was excited about it, but my own principles would never allow me to invest in multiple ICOs. So that brings me to my next point. Right now, in this current bear market, you are probably feeling extremely uncertain about your portfolio. And the reason why you feel that way is because of the way you have always been approaching life. Think about it this way. 10 years ago, if I wanted to date someone, I would have to focus on that person, trying to understand that person, getting a little bit of information from outside before I even approach that person. Then when I approach that person, I already know what kind of character she's like. I will more or less want to know more about her. I'll ask certain questions that, I really want to get to know you on a deeper level. And then from then, what I'll do is just make sure that, hey, I want to know more about you. Perhaps maybe we could go out for a dinner or movie or something like that. I will focus purely on her. But these days, can you imagine that you guys are so used to Twitter? You guys are so used to what do you call it? What's that? Tinder, right? Because it's so easy to communicate. You guys or girls go through people really quickly. It's like, because everything is there, right? Whatever I just said is actually already there, because you have a profile of that individual, or at least whatever the person wants to put up there, right? So there's a quick rundown on who you are, what you like to do, so that you don't ask these kind of questions, right? I didn't have all that, when I was dating, and I didn't really date much, to be honest. I was very focused on who I wanted to be with, and at the time when I stayed with that girl, I would be committed to that particular individual for a good amount of time, really getting to understand. And only when I really wanted to settle down, it's like being committed for life. Same thing, man. Think about how you approach your current investments in your portfolio. Do you really think that way? And the question is, why don't you even think the way you do? Because you're going to be putting in hard-earned money here. You're going to be putting in either your savings or money that you've earned from working your day job. These are things that shouldn't be taken for granted, don't you think? But then again, people are taking the whole space for granted. But then again, they're wanting this high unrealistic expectation and high ROI, but they're not willing to put in the work. You see, when I was going through, especially when I was dating my wife, I put in a lot of effort just for her to like me. And at the same time, as we moved along, right, we took 7 years before we tied the knot. Yeah, we dated for 7 years before we tied the knot. That is kind of how long I stayed committed to one individual, and eventually, after really just knowing how I feel about her, then I finally tied the knot. It's the same thing right now. You guys are like all over the place. When I speak to you all during consultations, you guys have 30 coins, 50 coins, 90 coins. I'm like, okay, I don't really understand the rationale behind it, because I mean, even though how sharp or how smart an individual is, I don't know how do you handle 50 coins. It's like you're telling me that you're going to be able to date 50 girls at one time and remember all their names. Unless you are a fucking genius, right, that has probably a fucking phone directory or a name card holder in your head, right, that you can immediately flip and remember the girl's name like on the spot. I'll give that to you. You're probably the 1%. And you probably should be a Casanova. But for most parts, I think if you dated 50 girls, you couldn't even remember how their faces look like, let alone their names. So that's what I'm just trying to say here. You are approaching it the exact same way you do your dating. And this is why you will never make money, because at the end of the day, you'll be so fucking confused that you don't even know which girl you really like, because you will mix their fucking personalities, you will mix their characteristics, and at the end of the day, you'll just be spending money over and over again, right? Because you like maybe the date, right? You enjoy the chase, you really want to just go for the one night stand. Maybe that's what you are into it. But you know what? At the end of the day, you're going to want to settle down, because after a while, you'll feel really lonely, because there's no real fulfillment in doing whatever you're doing. That's the same thing here. If you don't even know your own portfolio, you don't even know what fucking cryptocurrencies you have in your portfolio, and you only continue to want to buy the next hot thing, sounds familiar, right? You only want to buy the next hot thing or whatever that's moving, right? You're going to only end up feeling and left all lost. And that's what's been happening. I thought for a fact that everyone would be learning throughout this whole bear market. But apparently people are still making dumb decisions, still asking dumb questions. And that's what's the most frustrating part. I'm not frustrated about people losing money. I can't even... I'm okay with people losing money because they have to burn to learn. But for me, I'm just someone who kind of wants to understand the whole situation right now and put my best advice forward. Guys, if you don't even know how to identify which cryptocurrencies are worth your money right now, honestly, it's time to take a step back and probably stop putting money into the space, because this is not how you should grow your wealth. As you know, CG has a plan to really help 1 million people become debt-free. And if you guys are still not getting the message, it's really, really time to take a step back. Maybe you should stop trading, investing for this year. And then, once you kind of find the rhythm again and you really understood and digested whatever I said, maybe then you start making money. That's just how I feel. I mean, I really want to make sure that you guys understand what's been going on. You can follow all the traders, the technical analysis and everything like that, but that's just so fast-paced. Sometimes at the end of the day, and if you're not willing to put in as much as they do in terms of the effort to understand the markets, as in we're talking about intraday to certain time frames, and if you're not willing or be as savvy as them, perhaps maybe as an investor, you should not try the day trade and try to be a character that you're not. You know what I'm saying? Like, just move with the market when you feel the most comfortable, where the risk and reward ratio is the most favorable for you. If you're someone who's been working really hard, right, you really have no time to understand what's been going on, or you're someone who's just been studying for exams or whatever, okay, why don't you just take a step back for a moment, don't touch the market, and just start reading up. Try to reevaluate what's been going on, right? And after that, once you have formulated a game plan, okay, attack. You don't have to attack all the time, guys. You don't have to think just because, you see, there's too much fucking fluff in the fucking market at the moment that everybody's claiming that they are millionaire day traders shorting the market and everything. But to me, that's the 1%. You're watching the 1% that this dude probably spent a decent amount of time understanding this market, and for now the algorithms work well for him because he found the formula, right? But that formula may not essentially work for you. You have to find a formula that works for yourself. And so that's why I'm just saying you have to just be comfortable with what's been happening in the market first, and when emotions are able to be placed aside, then you step in. And that's when you're going to start maybe making money. Guys, I have not been trading extensively. I've just been buying stuff up because that's how I make my fortunes. I don't even give a shit about what's going on with Bitcoin Cash, because to me that was trash from the very beginning. You see, I don't believe in it, because at the end of the day, do I see merchants worldwide, internationally accepting Bitcoin Cash? No, I don't see that. I hardly even see enough Bitcoin related merchants that are willing to accept Bitcoin. I do see only my favorite gold supplier accepting Bitcoin, but that's at a premium. I'll never fucking pay 5% on top of my gold. That's for sure. But then again, I'm just saying that's the only thing I really see. I don't see it, guys. Not yet. But what I do see? I do see exchanges making money. I do see exchanges that are established and strong making revenue. They're building businesses. They're also obviously opening offices around the world. That's what I see. And a lot of people don't see that because everyone just sees the price. They don't see whatever that they're building. And that's a shame because at the end of the day, when these exchanges start to make huge money because they're preparing the infrastructure for the adoption, that's what you got to see, guys. And when you fail to see that, unfortunately, you're going to be left out and you're not going to be making any money because you don't see all that. Same thing, if you believe that your project is on the brink of developing something really solid that is relevant for the next 3 years, and you're not in, or you're not in enough to make a significant play, or at least when it starts moving and when it starts moving, you're not having enough in the game, unfortunately, that's going to be you because you didn't do enough research on that to begin with. So start doing all these things that I just mentioned in this video, and I really hope to see you guys change the way you view things and stay committed, guys, because this space is just going to blow up in 2019. I guarantee it. It's just a matter of time, guys. So stay in the game, stay focused, and if you don't have your edge, just don't do anything. I'll see you in the next video, guys.